Let us begin with our Caitanya Charitamrita invocation. Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. We are reading from Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Adi-lila, Chapter 7, Lord Chaitanya and 5 Features, by Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, translations and purports by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharane Nirvasheshi Shunyavadi Prashadade Shatarane Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So Adi-lila chapter 7, we're starting from text 20 to 21. This is a really nice verse. Two verses together. Se pancha tattvamili prithivi asya purva prema bandharera mudra ugadiya panche mili lute prema kare asvadana yata yata piye trishna bade anukshana. Translation. The characteristics of Krishna are understood to be a storehouse of transcendental love. Although that storehouse of love certainly came with Krishna when he was present, it was sealed. But when Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came with his associates of the Panchatattva, they broke the seal and plundered the storehouse to taste transcendental love of Krishna. The more they tasted it, the more their thirst for it grew. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is called Mahavadanyaya Avatar because although he is Sri Krishna himself, he is even more favorably disposed to the poor fallen souls than Lord Sri Krishna. When Lord Sri Krishna himself was personally present, he demanded that everyone surrender unto him and promised that he would give one all protection. But when Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came to this earth with his associates, he simply distributed love of God without discrimination. Sri Rupa Goswami therefore could understand that Lord Chaitanya was none other than Sri Krishna himself, for no one but the Supreme Personality of Godhead can distribute confidential love of the Supreme Person. Jai. Yeah, so Krishna ends the Bhagavad Gita, Sarvadharman Parityajya Mamekam Sharanam Vraja. Abandon all varieties of religion and just surrender unto me, and then Aham Tvam Sarva Papebhyo Mokshayishyami Ma Shuchaha. I'll deliver you from all your sinful reactions. Do not worry. But Lord Chaitanya didn't even say, surrender to me. He just, anybody who was out there on the street who was just willing, to take the holy name, to take his mercy, then he would bless them with love of God. So that was the mercy and the power of Lord Chaitanya. So, and also especially, because, somebody may be able to give faith in God, right? There are many, preachers and teachers and priests and religionists that will go out and talk to people and they'll convince people that there is a God, and that if you pray to God, then he answers your prayer. So they get, some faith in God and maybe they start praying, they start going to church or temple or mosque or something. But as far as like awakening love for Krishna, only Krishna can do that, right? So by the way that Lord Chaitanya was able to like instill faith, instill love in people, even who didn't have much faith in the beginning, like Jaga and Mada or something, then you can see that he is Krishna himself, right? Because only Krishna can do that. Okay, text 23. Puna puna piyaya haya mahamata nache kande hase gaya yaiche madamata.
three Panchatattva themselves danced again and again, and thus made it easier to drink nectarian love of Godhead. They danced, cried, laughed, and chanted like madmen, and in this way they distributed love of Godhead further. People today do not understand the actual meaning of chanting and dancing. Describing the Goswami, Sri Srinivasa Acharya stated, Krishna Kirtana Gana Nartana Parao. Not only did Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his associates demonstrate this chanting and dancing, but the six Goswamis also followed in the next generation. The present Krishna consciousness movement follows the same principle, and therefore, simply by chanting and dancing, we have received good responses all over the world. It is to be understood, however, that this chanting and dancing do not belong to this material world. They are actually transcendental activities. For the more one engages in chanting and dancing, the more he can taste the nectar of transcendental love of Godhead.
So, the Panchatattva means Lord Chaitanya, Lord Nityananda, Advaita Acharya, Gadadhar Pandit, and Srivas Thakur. That they were always dancing and chanting. And by their dancing and chanting, they became ecstatic. They would laugh and cry and dance like madmen, and in their ecstasy, they would distribute love of God to others. So Srila Prabhupada is saying the purport that there's so much power in this chanting and dancing. This is not just singing some songs and just dancing the way people dance in nightclubs or dance at like, classical dance or folk dance or square dance or, all these places, there's music and there's dancing, but you're not getting ecstatic love for God from that chanting and dancing, right? But this chanting and dancing that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave us is something very transcendental. Right? He's saying this, Prabhupada says, this chanting and dancing do not belong to this material world. Golokera Premadana Harinam Sankirtana. Chanting and dancing has come from Goloka, the spiritual world. And the more we chant and dance, the more we actually, like the Panchatattva, we can also taste the nectar, transcendental love of God, and become ecstatic. So that's the process, right? Kevala Anandakanda. It's simply joyful. It's a process that Lord Chaitanya gave us. He's just chanting and dancing, singing and dancing. Take prasadam. Chant, dance, take prasadam. All right, that's it.
I have feeling, yeah, this is true because in normal dance or sing, we are so much conscious with step, what we have to do. But when we dance, like when they dance in Kirtan, they are like they are not subconsciously doing any step or something. They are totally in ecstasy. So
Yeah.
that's a good difference.
Yeah, they just like sometimes it's nice, like sometimes you're dancing in the temple and you're kind of like trying to keep step with people and but then sometimes you get to a kirtan where everybody is just like going wild, nobody's
Yeah.
thinking about what step they're doing or who's watching
Jumping.
them. And they're just like on the transcendental platform dancing for Krishna. Patra patra vichara nahi nahi stana stana ye yaha payatanha kare premadana.
In distributing love of Godhead, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his associates did not consider who was a fit candidate and who was not, nor where such distribution should or should not take place. They made no conditions. Wherever they got the opportunity, the members of the Panchatattva distributed love of Godhead. Purport. There are some rascals who dare to speak against the mission of Lord Chaitanya by criticizing the Krishna consciousness movement for accepting Europeans and Americans as Brahmanas and offering them sannyas. But here is an authoritative statement that in distributing love of Godhead, one should not consider where the recipients are Europeans, Americans, Hindus, Muslims, etc. The Krishna conscious movement should be spread wherever possible, and one should not consider whether the recipients are Europeans, Americans, or greater than Brahmanas, Hindus, or Indians. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu desired that his name be spread in each and every town and village on the surface of the globe. Therefore, when the cult of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is spread all over the world, should those who embrace it not be accepted as Vaishnavas, Brahmanas, and Sannyasis? These foolish arguments are sometimes raised by envious rascals, but Krishna conscious devotees do not care about them. We strictly follow the principles set down by the Panchatattva.
So we're hearing here that the Panchatattva, when they're distributing love of God, they didn't discriminate between who is a fit person and who is not fit, who is fit to practice bhakti, who is not fit. So in the same way, we shall also not discriminate. We should just give love of God to everyone, give the holy name, give Prabhupada's books, invite everyone to our programs, help everyone make spiritual advancement. And yeah, whether someone is from one country or another, or is one gender or another, or is mentally, their mental health is one way or another, like there are no material impediments to bhakti. It's not blocked by the material body. It's not blocked by the material mind. It's not blocked by culture. Bhakti is transcendental, and it's not limited by any material thing, right? Just like I was just thinking, just like I can't walk through the wall, but a ghost can go through the wall, right? That's very random, right? So in the same way, like spirit is not blocked by matter.
Yeah.
Matter is blocked by matter. So, if you have some, maybe gender or country or language or culture or mental health, if you're trying for some material goal, you want to do some material thing, then they may be an impediment, right? Maybe something that you can't do because of your body or your mind or your background or something, right? Your visa status or so, right? If you want to do a material thing, there are material impediments to material things. But there's no material impediment to bhakti because it's totally spiritual. So none of these things matter. And that's why Lord Chaitanya and his associates didn't consider who was a fit candidate or who wasn't a fit candidate, because spirit souls are all equal and all equally eligible. So when we preach, we should just see, okay, here's a soul. Here's a soul who is the eternal servant of Krishna, and they all have dormant love of God in their hearts, and that can be awakened by bhakti. Okay. Now you're gonna remember that ghost.
Whatever.
I can't walk through the wall, but a ghost can go through the wall. Okay, that came to my mind, so okay, let's say that. Text 24. Lutia kaya dia bandara ujade, aschaya bandara prema shataguna bade. Nikesh.
Although the members of the Panchatattva plundered the storehouse of love of Godhead and ate and distributed its contents, there was no scarcity. For this wonderful storehouse is so complete that as the love is distributed, the supply increases hundreds of times. Purport. A pseudo-incarnation of Krishna once told his disciple that he had emptied himself by giving him all knowledge and was thus spiritually bankrupt. Such bluffers speak in this way to cheat the public, but actual spiritual consciousness is so perfect that the more it is distributed, the more it increases. Bankruptcy is a term that applies in the material world, but the storehouse of love of Godhead in the spiritual world can never be depleted. Krishna is providing for millions and trillions of living entities by supplying all their necessities. And even if all the innumerable living entities wanted to become Krishna conscious, there would be no scarcity of love of Godhead, nor would there be insufficiency in providing for their maintenance. Our Krishna consciousness movement was started single handedly and no one provided for our livelihood. But at present, we are spending hundreds and thousands of dollars all over the world, and the movement is increasing more and more. Thus, there is no question of scarcity. Although jealous persons may be envious, if we stick to our principles and follow in the footsteps of the Panchatattva, this movement will go on unchecked by imitation swamis, sannyasis, religionists, philosophers, or scientists, for it is transcendental to all material consideration. Therefore, those who propagate the Krishna consciousness movement should not be afraid of such rascals and fools.
Yeah. So what we see here is that the way that Krishna consciousness is, the love of God is that the more you give, the more you get. Right? It never runs out. It's not that you have some amount of love of God, and if you give it away, that's it. You don't have it anymore. It's not like a material thing like money or, cookies or something. You have a basket full of cookies, you give them all out, no cookies for you. Right? But Krishna consciousness is such like a bowl full of spiritual cookies. The more you give, every time you give one, you get 2 back or 10 back or 100 back. So yeah. So if we really want to advance in Krishna consciousness, if we want to have love for Krishna, then the best way is to give it. Right? The more we give, the more we get. So these people who say that, oh, I gave my Shakti to my disciples and now I'm weak, what kind of Shakti did they have? It was just some material, like material yoga siddhi or something. It wasn't bhakti, because that's not the nature of bhakti. It says bankruptcy applies only in the material world. The storehouse of love of Godhead in the spiritual world can never be depleted. So we should very enthusiastically distribute Krishna consciousness, distribute books, distribute prasadam, distribute the holy name, encourage each other. And sometimes, devotees, even in a devotee community, they see that someone else is making a lot of spiritual advancement and they feel a little bad. Think, oh, that person's becoming advanced, I'm getting left behind. And then they might become critical of that person, try to put them down in the eyes of others so that they look more advanced themselves, or at least equal to that person, if not better than that person. But that's not how it works, right? Actually, like the more we encourage each other in our devotional service, the more we all grow in devotional service. So yeah, if we see an advanced devotee, then we should praise that devotee, appreciate that devotee. And then by doing that, then we grow in our bhakti, right? Because we're giving positive devotional service. We're validating another person's bhakti. And so Krishna validates our bhakti. You know what I mean? Like that. So, yeah. But if we try to, out of envy, if we try to restrict other people's spiritual advancement, then we end up restricting our own. So that's something to remember. Text 25. Uccha-lila prema vanya chodike vedaya strivida balaka yuva sabare dubaya. Yeah, and like some devotees, like now there's this whole Vaishnavi Diksha Guru issue that's being talked about a lot because the GBC is about to vote on it like in a couple of weeks' time. And it's just symptomatic of that, that some devotees don't want to acknowledge the spiritual advancement of other devotees. Right? They don't want to recognize it and honor them for that and facilitate them in growing in their bhakti and stepping up to a position where they can really help others grow a lot in their bhakti and spread the movement. And so what they're doing is that they're actually hurting themselves. Right? They're hurting themselves personally, and by doing that, because when you restrict someone else's bhakti, you restrict your own. Of course, bhakti itself can't be restricted, but you can restrict that person from being able to. You can disempower a person, or like it's a word like kind of. Instead of facilitating the person in their service, you can defacilitate them or whatever. You can like put obstacles in the way, make it more difficult for them to do their service. So when we put obstacles in the path of other people's service, then Krishna's going to put obstacles in our own service. And then and the movement that we're a part of can't spread so nicely. And so that also is not good for us, right? I mean, it just makes sense, right?
Yeah, I think this is so true because like from smaller level to leadership, this happens everywhere. Like as you're saying, with Siksha, Diksha, Guru, even in India, I've seen a lot of these things where they just try that, oh, someone is going at 4 a.m. Mangal Aarti, then they will try to put them down or something.
Yeah, they'll find some other fault. Okay, they get up early in the morning, but it's Or later
Yeah.
on the day they sleep all day, or
So
they'll say
true.
something.
Yeah, or maybe that girl is going because of something.
All the time. And then afterwards, you wonder why no one goes to Mangalarti. And then you wonder why your temple is like dying. And then you are the only person left in the dying temple. Then are you happy? No. Lavanga?
I needed to hear this discussion. I almost gave up my service last night because of a situation like this.
Really?
Yeah, so no, because I give class on Wednesdays, and like for the past couple, like there's been a couple new people coming that have been asking me questions and stuff like that, and then there was this other devotee in the class, and I guess since I've started preaching to these other two, or outreaching to these other two people, he's started asking me questions in the class that are like in a very challenging mood. I don't know if that makes sense. Kind of like when somebody asks you a question out of curiosity, but it's almost like very challenging, or like they want to prove you wrong or something, something like that. And it's been going on for a few weeks, and I could just feel the like I don't know, like some tension, like this devotee doesn't like me all of a sudden. And and well, it turned out that like I guess because I was talking to these other people trying to help them, that person was kind of upset because he was wanting to talk to them, and so I was like, yeah, well, if he feels that way and wants control over it, I'll let him have the whole program. That's I don't want to be involved, and so anyway, but this discussion, gave me some encouragement, to kind of rise above that and just find the good. So thank you.
Yeah, you keep giving your classes, Lavanga. Don't worry about him.
Thank you.
It's just, this is the nature of the conditioned soul. That's why we're here, is because of envy. And so it comes out in all these different ways, that, oh, why is everyone going and asking her the questions and seeing her as a mentor and seeing her as the guru? I want to be the guru. I want to be the senior devotee that everyone goes to with their questions. So if I can put her down and try to point out some ways that she doesn't know something, can't answer my questions, then they'll see that I'm better than she is and they'll come to me. It's just silly. But yeah, it is what it is. It's conditioning. And but we shouldn't be intimidated by it, and we shouldn't stop our services because of an envious person. You go ahead and Krishna will figure it out.
How do we deal with this envy? Like for example, like first question is, if someone does this to you, how do you go forward without being affected? And second is, how do you deal with envy? Like if you have,
And you're on.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, generally, to answer the second question first, the best way if we're envious of someone, then we can counteract that by praising that person. Right? So that devotee, instead of asking challenging questions to try to stump Lavanga when she's sitting there giving class, he could appreciate your class. At the end, he could say, oh, Lavanga Prabhu, that was an amazing point that you made there. I really appreciated it, and it clarified some things for me, whatever. And then he would find that his devotional service would be a lot smoother after that, and he would be a lot more happy actually too. And that people who go to ask you questions might start coming to ask him questions because they'll see he's a nice person who appreciates others and cares. Okay. Oh, and the other one was how to deal with an envious person like that. Yeah, you might just, if you are brave enough, you can confront the person, in a soft way, in a humble way, using nonviolent communication, and say, excuse me, Prabhu, I wanted to talk to you about something. Often I feel like, when I'm giving class, you ask questions that seem to me to be a little challenging. And yeah, I mean, maybe totally my shortcoming, but when you ask those kinds of questions, it makes me feel ... right? However you feel. And then you just tell him that, we're trying to work together here to spread Krishna consciousness in this place, and feel like we need each other we need to support each other. you know, like I'm trying to support the temple, and I'm encouraged by people that support me, and I really need you to support me. Yeah. And then see how that goes. Okay. All right. And if they stick to being envious, if they're just like, oh, well, that's obviously your shortcoming, like your problem, and I'm not challenging, I'm just asking, you know, regular questions. And if you're threatened by them, then that just shows that you're not qualified to give class, which is the whole point here. You know, if he comes off like that, then, you know, you don't stop doing your service, but you just avoid the person. You just avoid the person. And maybe you can ask, you know, the temple president to be present, or another senior devotee to be present when you're giving class, if that person's there, and then that might calm them down. You know, that might stop them from obviously trying to cut you down in class, or just let that senior devotee answer his questions. Just defer to him. Just be like, oh, that's a very good question. Such and such, Prabhu, would you like to answer it? You're senior than me. Would you like to answer it? Is that okay, Lavanga? You're muted.
That was perfect, Prabhu. Thank you so much. It's like the
Okay.
first time I've dealt with a situation like this, so thanks.
Yeah. I try to you know that there's one martial art where the person like punches you, and then you take their fist and use their same energy to like pull them down. I usually try to do that. So I remember when I was in Mayapur, and the women had never given class. Vaishnavis never gave class in Mayapur up till a certain point. And then there was a group of devotees. They were male devotees, maybe male. Anyways, it was a male proper disciple who was really, you know, like fighting for that women should be able to give class, right? Like, so then finally the Mayapur management agreed, but they had some very strict restrictions on which Vaishnavis could give class. Like you had to be at least 45 years of age, you had to be second initiated, you had to be actively teaching Shastra currently, you know, like a certified Bhakti Shastri teacher or something at least, even though the men needed none of those qualifications. But anyways, so that really limited it down to a few people, of which I was one. So then they approached me asking if I could give a Bhagavatam class, and I was just like, I am not going to be the first woman in the history of the planet to give Bhagavatam class in Mayapur. I said, but I'll be the second. So they found some brave Vaishnavi to give class first. I can't remember who it was actually. But then I was the second. So I was the second. So I was sitting there in the Vyasasana, and I was like pretty nervous because Mayapur, you know, you got like Jani Vasprabhu, Pankajangi Prabhu, like devotees. It's on Mayapur TV all over the world. And so, you know, I really put a lot of research into the class. It was like a really good class. And at the end, there was this brahmachari, and he asked a question which was literally like he was just trying to like ask something that I couldn't answer. You know, he was just, but I was really prepared, and I had anticipated questions that might come up, and I had actually planned for, you know, many questions that could come up, even challenging questions. And that was exactly one of them. And it actually was related also to a point that I had wanted to make in the class, but that I had forgotten to make. I had it in my notes, and I just kind of skipped over it somehow. So when he asked the question, I gave a big smile, and I was like, thank you so much, Prabhu, for asking that question, because, you know, it's something I wanted to talk about, but I somehow overlooked it. And then I went and gave this really well-prepared answer because I had thought it through. And then he was just like, you could see how his face, that was kind of like in the beginning, kind of just like, it was just like defeated, you know. So in the beginning, it was like that, you know, it was like a battle every time one of us Madhujis gave class. It was like, you know, you felt like you were just like, you know, like one of those ceramic ducks, you know, when hunters are doing target practice, and you're like the duck there, that fake bird that they shoot. Anyways, yeah. So you're just sitting there with a lot of rifles aimed at you. But afterwards, it settled down, and they kind of accepted that. All right, ladies can sometimes give a decent class. We'll go. Nice, yeah. It wasn't all of them, it was just a few. Most of them were great. Most of them would come up afterwards and be like, Hare Krishna Mataji, that was one of the best classes I ever heard. Even Johnny Rasper was like, such a great class. Thank you so much. Please give class more often. So yeah. Prayushi?
Mataji, I had a question like similar, but in a different mood. Like, I had a friend who used to always come up and with a mood like, please sympathize me. Like, people did bad to me. They did this to me. They were talking this to me. I'm like, why does have you ever thought, why does this thing happen to you? But then I figured out, like, she used to assume that people are trying to harm her, but um, actually the reality was all different. Her friend used to say in a very light mood, and she used to just overthink, and just she used to like think that she is trying to manipulate me or she's trying to harm me. And uh, I don't know. I tried to talk to her about this thing that, hey, you can try not to like just overthink, just let it go. But still, she kept on complaining, and like I try to maintain my distance with her. But how to handle such kind of people who just assume that people are trying to harm, but the reality is just people don't even care.
Yeah, often it's like that. Sometimes, yeah, we just assume that the whole world is against us and everyone's out to get us and everyone's just trying to like harm us in some way. And it's not the case at all. Like people are not even thinking about us; they're just going about their lives. And yeah, sometimes we might think, oh, someone's asking a horrible, nasty question, trying to cut me down, but they're actually just asking a genuine question, you know. And so, yeah, we should try to give people the benefit of the doubt. Yeah, I think that's the best thing is just assume good intentions, right? We should assume good intentions and then just take it from there and just assume. Right. And also sometimes people just, it's like someone said to me, don't um, don't attribute to maliciousness with something that is actually just incompetence. Right? Somebody just maybe doesn't know how to act or doesn't know how to do something, is just not very good at communicating or something. And so it comes out in a way that seems, weird or awkward or something. And we can interpret it in some way, but we should just assume that the person has good intentions and maybe they just aren't a very good communicator or whatever, they have their issues. They have their own issues. Nothing to do with me. Especially if you didn't do anything wrong, if you're just trying to be a nice person and trying to help others in Krishna consciousness, and then somebody says something nasty to you, it's like, okay, just internally, you can externally just try to receive them graciously and respond nicely, and internally just be like, okay, that person has some difficulties they're struggling with, and pray
So
for them.
there was an incident when I found out that she has this issue, and I tried to bring her to Mantra Yoga Lounge. Like in the university, we had this preaching sessions, and then I heard, like, I got to know from the other friend of hers that she was complaining that about me, that what does she think of herself, that I'm so wrong, I don't know what life is, and she's trying to get me to this classes. I'm like, I never thought in this way. Like, I just felt like it would just help her. Preaching sessions are devotees try to preach from Bhagavad Gita, the actual knowledge. So, like, I don't know what to say now.
Yeah. Whatever, you can only do what you can do. You're trying to genuinely help someone and they interpret it another way, like you can just say, oh, sorry, I thought you might like it, but if you don't, then it's totally your prerogative to go or not. I wouldn't overthink it too much. Okay, let's go on. I don't want this to get to be like a psychological counseling session because I'm totally unqualified to be a psychological counselor. Text 25. Uchalila prema vanya chodike vedaya Strividha balaka yuva sabare dubaya. Who we got there? Lavanga.
Prabhu, I don't have the book
Okay,
today.
no worries. Rich, you got it? Back to Rich. Text 25. You're muted. Rich, you gonna read? Otherwise, we go to Sneha. Sneha ji, are you there?
I'm there, Prabhupada Priya, but I won't be able to read. Sorry.
Okay. Hannah?
I hate to disappoint, but I'm also just listening today.
Okay. Kritika?
Oh, I'm gonna listen to the.
Okay.
Excuse me,
So,
Prabhupada Priya, did you call on
yeah,
me and I didn't hear you?
yeah.
Oh, I'm
Yeah, I was
sorry. You want
asking,
me
I was
to?
inviting you to read. Would you like to
Oh,
read text
yes, I would like
25?
to read. I apologize. I didn't hear you, Prabhupada Priya.
No worries. You
O-
go ahead and read then, please.
Translation: The flood of love of Godhead swelled in all directions, and thus young men, old men, women, and children were all immersed in that inundation. Purport: When the contents of the storehouse of love of Godhead is thus distributed, there is a powerful inundation that covers the entire land. In in Sri Dhamma Mayapur, there is sometimes a great flood after the rainy season. This is an indication that from the birthplace of Lord Chaitanya, the inundation of love of Godhead should be spread all over the world, for this will help everyone, including old men, young men, women, and children. The Krishna consciousness movement of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is so powerful that it can inundate the entire world and interest all classes of men in the subject of love of Godhead.
Jai. Yeah. So here we have the Panchatattva. You're going out. They broke open the storehouse of love of God and they're distributing the contents very freely. And the more they're distributing it, the more they're relishing. And the more they're relishing, the more they're chanting and dancing and getting more ecstatic and laughing and crying and not considering who's fit and who's not fit or where or when they should distribute, just unconditionally, indiscriminately pouring love of God on the world. And therefore, that flood, they're making a flood of love of God, which is swelling, which is the flood waters are rising in all directions, and it's inundating everyone, old men, young men, women, children, everyone. So, yeah. And the place where that started was in Mayapur, right? Because that's where Lord Chaitanya started his Sankirtan movement. So, Mayapur is situated there on the banks of the Ganga, Ganges River, and sometimes during the rainy season, the river floods. And I've been there before. I lived there for 9 years, and we were there for one big flood where there was like water some places over your head, like all over. So it's like ground floor is just empty because it floods, so no one's can live on the ground floor. And so we were on the like level 1. So we go up some stairs and then so it was like we have a balcony, you look up the balcony in a lake. And then you go down the steps and then you just go into the water. And then we walked to the temple. One day we went swimming to the temple. The water was like, up to the chest deep, or some places a little lower, some places a little higher, depending on the ground level. And yeah, devotees were going around with these boats, wooden boats, delivering food and water to people's houses and things. So like that, there was a flood. So sometimes it floods. And Prabhupada said that this flooding in Mayapur, the birthplace of Lord Chaitanya, is an indication that this flood of love of God that started in Mayapur is going to spread all over the world. So that was a prediction of ISKCON. Right? Srila Prabhupada went to Mayapur. He took that and he brought it all over the world. Took Lord Chaitanya's Sankirtan movement, every town and village, doing Harinam, book distribution, everything. And that the other thing that's indicated here is that this is for everyone. Right? Stri, Vridha, Balaka, Yuva, all of them. Stri means women, Vridha, old men, Balaka, children, Yuva, youth. This is for everyone. So all people all over the world we have to flood them with love of God.
Actually, putting inside another mother temple.
Yeah. Yeah, some devotees had these
Exactly.
like inflatable rafts, and they were like paddling them into the temple, and they're like in their raft in front of Radha Madhava.
Whoa. See here? They're like boating, some of them are boating and like.
Let's see. Yeah, like they're in a boat in the Radha Madhava temple.
Oh, that's such
Was
a
it like in the past decade?
2015.
2015
Yeah, that's when I was there,
flood.
2015. Yeah, we swam
2015,
down for
yeah.
darshanarti, and
Swim for darshanarti.
we were like the kirtan was going on, and we were jumping. We were like jumping in the water. You know, when you jump in water, you go way up. You're like jumping
This is
really
your
high.
The water is
And
like
splashing. Yeah, check it out.
chest water.
Crazy, right? That's exactly how it was when I went to the temple. Govinda. But the crazy thing is that water, there was like bugs and things. Sometimes like one big bug would go crawling up. There were snakes and everything. But it was fun. Okay, Jai. So let's flood the world with love of Godhead. Okay. Prema Panya, the inundation of love of God. Sajjana Durjana Pangu Jada Andagana Prema Panyaya Dubaila Jagatera Jana. Thank
The Krishna consciousness movement will inundate the entire world and drown everyone, whether one be a gentleman, a rogue, or even lame, invalid, or blind. Purport. Here again, it may be emphasized that although jealous rascals protest that Europeans and Americans cannot be given the sacred thread or sannyas, there is no need even to consider whether one is a gentleman or a rogue, because this is a spiritual movement which is not concerned with the external body of skin and bones, because it is being properly conducted under the guidance of the Panchatattva, strictly following the regulative principles. It has nothing to do with external impediments.
Yeah. So even us American rogues are eligible. The Durjanas and the Pungus. Pungu means lame. Toad. Anna?
When we hear verses like this, it's a little confusing how, like, why women are not allowed to give initiation to me.
Mm.
Like, I don't understand, because I've actually like listened to a bunch of dialogues and I still don't get it.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense. I mean, Krishna's Kaviraj is literally saying street. He's saying these women can be immersed in love of God. So if you can be immersed in Krishna prema, I would think you could, guide a disciple in Krishna consciousness.
Good words to put in debate.
Yeah, I mean, he says this is for women, like everybody. Okay. Jagat dubila jivera haila bija nasha tadeki pancha janera parama ulasa.
When the five members of the Panchatattva saw the entire world drowned in love of Godhead, and the seed of material enjoyment in living entities completely destroyed, they all became exceedingly happy. Purport. In this connection, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakura writes in his Anuvarsha that since the living entities all belong to the marginal potency of the Lord, each and every living entity has a natural tendency to become Krishna conscious. Although at the time the seed of material enjoyment is undoubtedly within him, the seed of material enjoyment, watered by the course of material nature, fructifies to become a tree of material entanglement that endows the living entity with all kinds of material enjoyment. To enjoy such material facilities is to be affiliated with the three material miseries. However, when by nature's law there is a flood, the seeds within the earth become inactive. Similarly, as the inundation of love of Godhead spreads all over the world, the seeds of material enjoyment becomes impotent. Thus, the more the Krishna consciousness movement spreads, the more the desire for material enjoyment decreases. The seed of material enjoyment automatically becomes impotent with the increase of the Krishna consciousness movement. Instead of being envious that Krishna consciousness is spreading all over the world by the grace of Lord Chaitanya, those who are jealous should be happy, as indicated here by the words Parama Ullasa. But because they are Kanishta Adhikaris or Vaktas, materialistic devotees who are not advanced in spiritual knowledge, they are envious instead of happy, and they try to find faults in the Krishna consciousness movement. Yet, Srimad Prabodhananda Saraswati writes in his Chaitanya Chandramrita that when influenced by Lord Chaitanya's Krishna's consciousness movement, materialistic become averse to talking about their wives and children. Supposedly, learning scholars give up their tedious studies of Vedic literatures. Yogis give up their impractical practices of mystic yoga. Ascetics give up their austere activities of penance and austerity, and sannyasis give up their study of Sankhya philosophy. Thus, they are all attracted by Bhakti Yoga practices of Lord Chaitanya and cannot release a mellow superior to that of Krishna consciousness.
Yeah, so if you have a seed and you put a little water on the seed, then the seed dries. But if you put the seed like totally underwater for a long period of time, it gets like waterlogged. It just gets soggy and it just rots. And it loses its potential to sprout. So the seed for material enjoyment, when it gets inundated with the flood of love of God that was created by the Panchatattva, then it gets soggy and it just becomes rotten and it can never sprout again. So like the Panchatattva drowning the whole world in love of God and seeing how everybody's material enjoyment is becoming hopeless. And they're becoming very happy. Right? Because we were singing yesterday, we were singing that song, Vishaya Chariya, Seva Se Magia. Okay, Boli Hari. Okay, Boli. So the song is there's another one that there's. Has the same thing, Vishaya Chariya Kavi Shura. Yeah, the one I'm thinking was Paramakurva where it says Vishaya Chariya. Anyways, Seva Se Magia. Okay, Lord Hari Hari. Yeah. That when we give up our desires for material enjoyment, then we can actually chant the holy names of the Lord in ecstasy. So, yeah, that's a prerequisite, and it's also an effect. So the more we give up material enjoyment, even if we do have a taste for it, and start to chant and dance, following the footsteps of Lord Chaitanya and their associates, then the more the seed of material enjoyment is going to be destroyed. And then the more the seed is destroyed, the more we're going to chant and dance in ecstasy, following the footsteps of Lord Chaitanya. So it's just a beautiful, spiritually productive cycle. Okay, yeah, and then Prabhupada Saraswati is saying that as soon as one, whatever you're doing, if you're influenced by Lord Chaitanya's Krishna consciousness movement, basically whatever you were doing before that, you're going to lose taste for. The materialistic people are always talking about their families, right? But he said that when they come to Krishna consciousness, they're not interested in talking. They'll do their Ashtanga yoga practices. He says they give it up. They're like, oh my God, this is useless. I just want to chant and dance. And then ascetics, they're doing all these austerities and penances, and they're like, why am I killing myself unnecessarily? Let me just chant and dance, take this on. And these sannyasis, especially Mayavad sannyasis who are studying Vedanta, studying Sankhya, and they're also like, why am I studying all these books when the goal of life is love of God, and I can get that very easily by chanting Hare Krishna. So everybody just gives up all their difficult, tedious, and useless processes and takes to the ecstatic and easy and wonderful process of Sankirtan. Text 28. Yata yata prema vrishti kare pancha jane tata tata badhe jala vyate tribhuvane. Rich
Oh, one moment, Prabhupada Priya. Thank you for your patience. Translation: the more the five members of the Panchatattva cause the rains of love of Godhead to fall, the more the inundation increases and spreads all over the world. Purport: the Krishna consciousness movement is not stereotyped or stagnant. It will spread all over the world in spite of all objections by fools and rascals that European and American mlechas cannot be accepted as brahmanas or sannyasis. Here it is indicated that this process will spread and inundate the entire world with Krishna consciousness.
Yeah, so before the restrictions were being imposed on people outside of our movement, right? They're from outside of ISKCON. Other Vaishnavas were saying, no, you can't make Brahmins, you can't allow these Europeans and Americans to become Brahmins and sannyasis. So then, anyways, Srila Prabhupada fought and fought and fought, and to some degree it's accepted. In any case, Prabhupada was going to do what he was going to do anyway. Now the restrictions are not so much imposed from outside, they're imposed from inside. That such and such people can't be gurus, can't be whatever. So it's another battle. But just as Srila Prabhupada fought this battle, he would be fighting now. Of course, if Prabhupada was here, he wouldn't have to fight. It would just be done. But for some reason, Prabhupada's own disciples are unable to accept what Prabhupada wanted and what he actually said. Okay, let's see. Text 2930. Mayavadi karmanishta kutarkika gana nindaka pashandiyata paduya adama se sabha mahadaksha dana padaya se vanyita sabare chunite naida. Lavanga?
Hold on, I'm not in a position I can read at the moment.
Okay. Do you want to read Prayushi?
I can read. The impersonalists, fruitive workers, false logicians, blasphemers, non-devotees, and lowest among the student community are very expert in avoiding the Krishna consciousness movement, and therefore the inundation of Krishna consciousness cannot reach them. But like Mayavadi philosophers in the past, such as Prakashananda Saraswati of Banaras, modern impersonalists are not interested in Lord Chaitanya's Krishna consciousness movement. They do not know the value of this material world. They consider it false and cannot understand how the Krishna consciousness movement can utilize it. They are so they are so absorbed in impersonal thought that they take it for granted that all spiritual variety is material because they do not know anything beyond their misconception of the Brahmajyoti. They cannot understand that Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is spiritual and therefore beyond the conception of material illusion. Whenever Krishna incarnates personally or as a devotee, these Mayavadi philosophers accept him as an ordinary human being. This is condemned in Bhagavad Gita 9:11. Avyajay- Avajananti mam mudha manushyam tanum ashritam param bhava ajananto mam bhuta maheshwaram. Fools desire me when I descend in the human form. They do not know why transcendental knowledge as the supreme lord of all that be. There are also other unscrupulous persons who exploit the Lord's appearance by posing as incarnations to cheat the innocent public. An incarnation of God should pass the tests of the statements of the Shastras and also perform uncommon activities. One should not accept a rascal as an incarnation of God, but should test his ability to act as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. For example, Krishna taught Arjuna in the Bhagavad Gita, and Arjuna also accepted him as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But for our understanding, Arjuna requested the Lord to manifest his universal form, thus testing whether he was actually the Supreme Lord. Similarly, one must test a so called incarnation of Godhead according to the standard criteria. To avoid being misled by an exhibition of mystic powers, it is best to examine a so called incarnation of God in the light of the statement of the Shastras. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is described in the Shastras as the incarnation of Krishna. Therefore, if one wants to limit Lord Chaitanya and claim to be an incarnation, he must show evidence from the Shastras about his appearance to substantiate his claim.
Right. Yeah. So Krishna's Kaviraj is saying that there's a whole bunch of different groups of people who try to avoid the Krishna consciousness movement. Right. And so, yeah, since they're determined not to be Krishna conscious, then yeah, they don't become Krishna conscious. So that's what we see, right? Sometimes we go out on Harinam book distribution. There's a lot of people that are determined, right? It's like even though the devotees are chanting and dancing and so joyful, and they're passing right by the Harinam on the street, they're just like, I'm determined not. I'm not going to look at them. I'm not going to smile. I'm not. They're like just determined to be miserable, actually. Yeah, or other people that would just cross the street and avoid it altogether. So what can you do? And we have to find other ways. That's what Lord Chaitanya did. He found other ways to try to catch these people. Like, for example, the Mayavadis, Lord Chaitanya took sannyas from a Mayavadi sannyasi just to be able to preach to the Mayavadis. He went that far. And then, yeah, and also that also got the students, because then those students would have to pay obeisances to him because he's a sannyasi now. That's the whole reason Lord Chaitanya took sannyas, is because these people, they would be forced to respect him. And yeah. So, Jai. Text 31-32. Taha deki Mahaprabhu karena chintana, Jagat dubaite ami karidunya dana, Keha keha eda-lila pratigyaha ila banga, Tasava dubaite patiba kichuranga. Yeah, so the same way we have to think, okay, these people are crossing the street, they don't like the Harinam, how can we get them? Right? So then we can open up restaurants, right? So that people who think that chanting and dancing is super weird, but they'll come and take prasadam, you know? And then when they come take prasadam, maybe they say the name of Krishna because they're like, where are we going for lunch today? Oh, let's go to Kalachandji's, let's go to Govinda's. Right? And then they end up chanting the holy name, even though they refused to chant it when the Harinam was there.
That's so true. Like when we do Harinam, some people think that we are trying to get something from them, or we are cheating them. They will just do like this and walk in front of us.
Yeah. Seeing that the Mayavadis and others were fleeing, Lord Chaitanya thought, I wanted everyone to be immersed in this inundation of love of Godhead, but some of them have escaped. Therefore, I shall devise a trick to drown them also. So that should be our motto. Drown them all. Here's an important point. Lord Chaitanya wanted to invent a way to capture the Mayavadis and others who did not take interest in the Krishna consciousness movement. This is a symptom of an acharya. An acharya who comes for the service of the Lord cannot be expected to conform to a stereotype, for he must find the ways and means by which Krishna consciousness may be spread. See, this is very important because, like, you know, a lot of ISKCON devotees have this idea that, oh, we have to do everything the way it's been done. We can't change anything. You know, Prabhupada did it this way, so we have to do it the same way. We can't do any innovations or any, you know, experiments or whatever. Prabhupada is like, no. And Prabhupada did. Prabhupada innovated so many things. He experimented with so many different things. He changed so many things from what his guru did. And he's literally like, no, if it's not working, we have to try something else. Right? The point is that it needs to work. Our preaching needs to be effective. So Lord Chaitanya was going on in Harinam, and he was seeing that the Mayavadis and these groups of people were not being attracted. So he's like, all right, I need a new strategy. Right? Plan A didn't work. We got to go for plan B. So then that's what he did, right? So we don't have to, in the service of the Lord, we don't have to conform to some stereotype. In other words, we don't have to preach Krishna consciousness the way they do it in India or the way they do it in another country. Even if it works there, if it doesn't work here, then what's the use of just doing something that doesn't work year after year and failing? So yeah, and that's the idea of like this whole cultural sensitivity thing. It's like, okay, in India, maybe you're thinking that Vaishnavi Diksha gurus are gonna be problematic, for your preaching. People are gonna think the movement has been watered down or something. But in the West, we actually need that. Like it's so crazy. What do you tell people when somebody comes up and says, "Oh, what is the answer to that question?" There's no answer. There's no reasonable answer. The only thing that you can say is, "I'm sorry, but our movement is a little sexist." It's just what it is. It's just what it is, So, I mean, you can soften the blow and say, yeah, this tradition comes from India and it's very newly, just past 60 years, it's been in the Western countries and it's taking some time to adapt to, time, place, and circumstances, or that, our standards, institutional standards are heavily influenced by, Indian culture and ancient traditions and Indian leaders, because most of the devotees in the movement nowadays are Indian. So, but, we do want to spread, this movement is not just for Indians, it's for everyone. And, we need to be with the times, and, you can say things like that, but really what it boils down to is that, there is some sexism within our movement that we need. Where that is abhorrent, which is most countries in the world, right? Okay. Gosh, I'm being highly political today. I guess this is on my mind because it's just like being talked about so much because they're voting on it like in a week or two. So let's get through this purport. Sometimes jealous persons criticize the Krishna consciousness movement because it engages equally both boys and girls in distributing love of Godhead. See, Prabhupada is going to hit the nail on the head right here. Not these fools and rascals criticize the boys and girls in Krishna consciousness for intermingling. But these rascals should consider that one cannot suddenly change a community's social customs. However, since both the boys and girls are being trained to become preachers, those girls are not ordinary girls, but are as good as their brothers who are preaching Krishna consciousness. So if the girls are not ordinary girls, they should not be treated like ordinary girls. If they're as good as their brothers, preaching field, which means becoming gurus, Prabhupada wanted. Therefore, to engage both boys and girls in fully transcendental activities is a policy intended to spread the Krishna consciousness movement, right? He's doing this why? To spread the Krishna consciousness movement. That's literally why we need this. These jealous fools who criticize the intermingling of boys and girls will simply have to be satisfied with their own foolishness, because they cannot think of how to spread Krishna consciousness by adopting ways and means that are favorable for this purpose. Their stereotyped methods will never help spread Krishna consciousness. Therefore, what we are doing is perfect by the grace of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, for it is he who proposed to invent a way to capture those who strayed from Krishna consciousness. Yeah, if we want to capture Western people, like mainstream Western people, and not just, Westerners who are, crazy or, kind of Indophilic, who just, huh? Yeah, we're going to attract like mainstream America. We really have to do what Prabhupada clearly wanted us to do here, and really show people that we're not on the bodily concept of life, and that the women that come to this movement are not ordinary women. They are Vaishnavis, and they're just as good as their brothers in preaching Krishna consciousness, and therefore they should be fully facilitated and empowered to preach. Whew, Lavanga, you had your hand up there a sec?
Yeah, well, no, it was just a thought because you were talking about this topic, and it made me think back to when you were mentioning when they were first going to allow women to give Bhagavatam class in Mayapur, that they had all this list of like, you had to be like 45 and teaching Shastra. And it just seems like with everything, like if you're in a female body, you have to be twice as qualified as somebody like in a man body. It's hilarious.
Yeah. Yeah, even with the Vaishnavi Diksha Guru, the thing is the GBC actually passed it. They actually passed the resolution that women can be Diksha gurus. Vaishnavis can be Diksha gurus, but they've made some conditions, right? They had these conditions like she has to be at least 55 years old. She has to, what are they? There are a bunch of different conditions that don't apply to men, and never did apply to men, and still don't apply to men. So, I mean, the thing is, like, if you want to make sure that you have a really good guru, get a Vaishnavi because the standards are higher.
Yeah.
You need to have been practicing Krishna consciousness for like probably twice as long as a man has been practicing. You practically have to be like, on the platform of Baba Bhakti. You have to realize your Swarup or something like that, You have to be like in a Vaishnava Sangha, actively engaging in Vaishnava Sangha. You can't be isolated from other devotees. So yeah, it's actually safer. Hannah?
I know half of the argument is like, well, this should be allowed so that we can make progress in the West. But it's also just like, it should just be allowed because that's like the basic teaching of Krishna consciousness is that you're not the body. So then to like exclude others on the basis of that is like the highest hypocrisy. But it's also like so obvious to like people with like common sense that that's what's happening. So it's just almost like exposing people's actual character.
Yeah. Yeah, it doesn't make any philosophical sense at all. It is all just emotional. What to do? Emotions are very strong. So, yeah, we have to end now. I'll try not to be too politically fired up tomorrow. Okay, Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita ki jai, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ki jai, Sri Krishna's Kaviraj ki jai, Sri Prabhupada ki jai, Gaur Premanandi.
Hari Prabhupada Priya ki jai.
It's so funny that I was like harping on those points, and then Prabhupada's purport was just like, it was just like as if Prabhupada was just going behind and saying, yeah, so I
Exactly, like same point, boys and girls, stereotype.
yeah, as good as their brothers.
Confirmation.
Right? Prabhupada.
And I like your point when you said that it is not same as India. Like if Western women are actually very, very different from Indian women. So if they are thinking about like how a Indian woman will be a Diksha Guru, it's totally different than a Western woman.
Yeah.
They are like more stronger and open-minded and can deal with things. Like it's not about the Indian things. You can put this.
Yeah, that's true.